Hey, what's up, everybody? Happy Monday. I hope everybody had a wonderful weekend. You got out to church. You got to be with the brethren, encouraged and edified, lifted up, built up, prepared for the week through the reading and teaching and preaching of the word. Um, it, you know, it. This last week I was doing children's church, so teaching the kids, and um, it is filling. We had a big group. It was difficult, but not at the same time. It was great. Um, anyway, today it is currently 55, high of 65, with chance of rain overnight, and the moon rise will be 1:25 a.m. and the moon set 6:59 p.m. So, I mean, I'm still learning about the moon and how this all works. So, um, seems to be it's more sporadic than the sun. So I'm curious how they navigated by it. Anyway, um, we're in a study of Job, and we're in uh, Job chapters 6 and 7. So Job, he's replying to what his friend uh, Eliphaz spoke, and in chapter 6, he basically starts out with um, wanting to explain how much he is hurt and upset. He says, "Oh, that my vexation were weighed and all my calamity laid in the balances." So, like, for as mad as he is, does his calamity equal it, right? Is he justified in how he's feeling? And as I as I read and studied through this chapter, these two chapters, because it's one speech, um, and well, one speech and a prayer, I think, at the end. Um, you know, I I recall, and I have, like, even very recently had um, the the type of emotional talk with God of my pity party, um, and my calamity is nothing like what Job experienced. But for me, it felt at the time like the weight of the world, right? And so, is it justified, right? Is it justified? Um, and in verse 4, so that weight and that calamity, he says, "For the arrows of the Almighty are in me." Now notice, even though we know it's Satan doing this, it's Satan carried out the sentence on Job, I guess is the best way to put it, or a way to put it. Um, but that sentence, it's the arrows of the Almighty. Notice it's God is all powerful. He's the one that is the one who puts everything on the balancer, right? He's the judge. Then he says, "My spirit drinks their poison." So that the arrows of the Almighty, when they come at you in that punishing effect, right? He says, "My spirit's talking about his soul," right? Job's not the spirit of God on Job, but his his soul drinks their poison, right? It hurts within, right? It hurts within. The terrors of God are arrayed against me, right? So Satan did it, but it's still God's wrath, and he when he's on you, right? It's there's no escaping it. He comes um, all times of the day. We're gonna see. Um, so because it's on him so much, If you drop down to verse 8, oh, that I might have my request and that God would fulfill my hope of death, right? He wants to die. That's the request. That he didn't ask to be restored. He wants to die. Why? And he says in verse 10, verse 9, that it would please God to crush me, that he would let loose his hand and cut me off. Instead of keeping him alive in the calamity, he wants him let loose, let his life loose, right? This would be my comfort, that I would exult in pain unsparing. So, even though he's going through all this, he doesn't want to, and he knows he's weak, right? I know I'm weak. He doesn't want to turn against God and dishonor God. Even though he's in this calamity, he wants it to end before he dishonors God, right? And that's his comfort, that I would exult in pain unsparing, for I have not denied the words of the Holy One. It's the purpose of his will to die, y'all, is that he doesn't turn on God. Now, it's comforting for Job to know that he hasn't turned on God, but he doesn't. The despair comes from knowing that he's very close to doing it. Right? Is my strength the strength of stones, or my flesh bronze? He knows he's weak. He's not built hard. Right? He's been broken down. There is no hardness. So he, in verse 13, have I any help in me? He searches himself and he knows there's nothing he's got. He can't do it, right? He's got nothing left. He needs a uplifting word. He's looking for his friends to help, right? But his friends don't help or have anything good to say. My brothers are treacherous as a torment. That's verse 15. He who withholds kindness from a friend forsakes the fear of the Almighty. Ooh, now that's a stinger. If you've ever been a comforting friend, and there, and why are these things happening, and blah blah blah, and the natural thing is to look to sin, right? The natural thing is to look to sin, but what about the testing of God, the hardening of God, the separation, right, of the dross from the gold, from the purity, the purifying, right? So there, in these times, the hope is that we get closer to God, right? And we know the Lord works all things for the good for those who love him and are called according to his purpose. Now, do we walk like that, right? Do we walk like that? Do we show that? Do we act like we're called according to his purpose? And how do we show that? We show that in these times. Okay, we show that in these times. Then verse 21, for you have now become nothing. You see my calamity and are afraid. It's real easy to point out sin instead of encourage. It is difficult to encourage in the hard times, especially, when we know when somebody's going through these hard times, when they come out on the other end, they're going to be very close to the Lord, right? And it is scary to know that. Yeah, it is scary to know that. And he says, you see my calamity and are afraid. The funny thing is, and I think it's that in chapter 7, we see that when these calamities are happening, God is visiting, right? And we ought to have some healthy fear of the Lord here, but I don't think that's the fear he's talking about. He says, have I said, make me a gift, or from your wealth offer a bribe for me? Right? Job doesn't want anything from them to in his despair, in his calamity. He's not trying to say like, "Oh, I'm so hurt and give me something." No, he's just looking for a edifying word, right? Teach me and I will be silent. Make me understand how I have gone astray. How forceful are upright words, but what does reproof from you reprove? When you're down, like, I know, you know, we know um, when we're in these times. We don't need somebody to reprove us necessarily in these times. Now, he did say, teach me and I will be silent. Make me understand how I have gone astray. Um, so he's still saying, like, I didn't do nothing, right? I didn't do anything wrong. So tell me. Tell me, I'll be quiet. Now, um, he says, do you think you can reprove words when the speech of the despairing man is wind? So I think about, when I'm in a trial or a brother in a trial and they're soaking up the darts, right? The arrows of the Almighty, and the poison and the terrors of God that are arrayed against them, and all this stuff is happening, and you can get to the point where you want to say something bad about God, where your faith does waver, where you do want to turn, right? And Job saying, do you think you can reprove words? Like, he's saying, if he did speak against God, like, he feels like he has the right to, when the speech of the despairing man is wind. Even though when you're in despair and you're talking that way, it's a vain or a futile talk. It's just talk out of hurt, talk out of the pain that you're in. Oh man, time's getting away from me. Has not, chapter 7, has not a hard service on earth, has not man a hard service on earth, or are not his days like days of the hired hand? Yes, that was my answer to that. So verses 1 through 7 here, Job went from a life of leadership and the life of wealth to the life of insignificance, right? Just chasing and chasing and chasing, but not ever finding. The eye of him who sees me will behold me no more. While your eyes are on me, I shall be gone. Is he talking to his friends, or is he talking about God here? The eye of him who sees me will behold me no more. Who's he talking to? And I pose that question because I actually think he's talking to the people, not necessarily God here. Like, he just, don't worry about it, because when I'm dead, you won't have to see me or deal with me or hear me complain anymore. And Job hasn't necessarily complained yet, but if he did, one, it would be the wind, so it would have no merit, and he knows that. And two, he would be justified if he did, is kind of where he's going. Therefore, I will not restrain my mouth. I will speak in the anguish of my spirit. Right? He's groaning from within. I will complain in the bitterness of my soul. So there's times where I've had these talks with God, where he's heard the bitterness of my soul, where he's heard my complaint, and I couldn't restrain my mouth. And I just, like, why this, God? Why? How we get here? What's your purpose here, God? Like, almost in can't believe that he put me here, or put me in this position, or all these things against me. Verse 14, then you scare me with dreams and terrify me with visions, so that I would not choose strangling, so that I would choose strangling and death rather than my bones. I loathe my life. I would not live forever. Leave me alone, for my days are a breath. You can't escape it even in your sleep, right? There is no rest. There's no rest for this. It is the when God's on you, He's on you. When you're being in a trial and by fire and tested by fire and made clean by fire, there's no escape. There's no escape. Um, and he's saying, I would rather die, right, and have this rest than to be alive and no rest, right? He loathes his life, right? He hates his life. I loathe my life. I would rather, I would not live forever. So just leave me alone now, for my days are a breath. So just stop it now. That's verse 16. And verse 17, what is man that you make so much of him, that you set your heart on him, visit him every morning and test him every moment? Like, he's like, what do you care so much about me for, that you're making me go through this? Like, you know, why you care so much that I would have to go through this, God? All right, you guys, we're out of time. Have a great day, and I'll catch you in the morning.